So here's what it looks like when it's finished. And if you're interested in learning more about how this works, there's a link in the description to the build article where I go into a lot more detail on how this can improve the acoustics in a room. Now there's a lot more to this ceiling than the acoustic treatment. I actually added bulkheads on each side with lights inside, and these are made from plywood, and then I painted them white. To fasten the slats so that they're hanging below the ceiling, I added these furring strips and then stapled up some thin layers of fiberglass before covering that over with the black cloth. I made the slats from 1/2-inch plywood, and what you see me doing here is I'm ripping the sheet in half to begin with, and then I reset the fence to cut strips that are 3 7/8 inches wide. So I got 12 strips out of each sheet, and it took 2 sheets to do the whole ceiling with a 5/8 inch gap in between the strips. After cutting out the strips, I had to do quite a bit of sanding. Starting on the edges, I clamped 12 strips together. I got one side sanded, flipped it over, and did the other side. And then I had to sand the face of each strip as well, which took quite a lot of time. After I got all the sanding done, I finished the strips by painting on 2 coats of water-based poly. And once again, that took a considerable amount of time as well. Overall, I would say that a ceiling like this looks like it's less work than it actually is. So with the slats prepared and finished and cut the length, I could bring them into my office and start fastening them to the ceiling. And to do that, I'm using a nailer that drives 23 gauge pins, and these are so tiny they're virtually impossible to see. As I went through, I pulled out the staples holding the black cloth up. Some of them wound up in the gaps between the slats. Taking the staples out was a good idea anyway, because it allowed me to pull the cloth taut and make it lay flatter on top of the slats. After installing the last slat, I trimmed off the excess cloth, which is remarkably difficult to cut even with a very sharp knife. And then I had 2 trim strips that I made earlier that I painted white, 3 coats. And these get fastened on the sides to cover the gaps and the ragged edge of the black cloth. And that's it. I'm very pleased with the outcome. The acoustic treatment is very effective. I edit my videos in this room, and I've also wanted to start recording voiceovers in here as well, rather than do that out in the workshop. And you've been listening to a sample of that throughout this video.